Your hosts are here, Sammie and Michelle. By the end of this podcast, you'll know them well. Adulting, navigating the journey of life. Careers to relationships, pain and strife. Put down the rule book, rethink the status quo. If there's another direction you wanna go, find purpose, passion and mastery in all that you do. With Status Post Adulting.
Hey, Status Post Adulting family. This is Sammie
and Michelle.
And you're listening to Status Post Adulting. And today we are going to be talking about how to fall in love with your job again.
How to love your job.
So today is Valentine's Day. It's the day you celebrate your love with your partner. But we're here to talk about something else. It's your love for the thing you spend even more of your time with. And that's your job.
Yes. This might seem a little bit off-brand for us because we're not always very into the idea of loving your job. But Sammie and I were thinking, one, it's Valentine's Day, so we wanted to have a fun little lovey theme. But also more than that, there's a lot going on right now with the economy. We talked a couple weeks ago about how to handle a layoff. Maybe you are not happy in your job right now. Maybe you're dissatisfied. Maybe you're burnt out. Maybe you're going into work every single day and you're thinking to yourself, I'm sick of this. I'm ready to burn this place to the ground. But it may not be a good time to quit your job. Or it might not be the job that's the problem. Maybe there's just something to reflect on or little things you could do to try to make it a more enjoyable experience. So we wanted to talk about that. Different things that we've done to help us enjoy our job. And we'll pull in a couple of resources to chat about that as well.
It's true, Michelle. You know, I look back, and maybe today I think of myself as Stanley from The Office. Disgruntled, trying to get out on time. Trying to make sure my work doesn't consume my whole life. But I remember a time, shortly after I had graduated from PA school, actually 5 years afterwards, I reunited with some of my girlfriends from PA school, and we were in San Francisco, sitting at Kitchen Story in the morning time, having brunch on a Friday, because I got Fridays off at my previous job. And we were just reflecting on how wonderful it was to be physician assistants. We were so grateful that the work we did inspired people and changed their lives. We were so grateful that we had enough income to be eating this delicious brunch at this delicious restaurant with millionaire bacon that was as thick as 2 nickels put together. And bottomless mimosas for days. And also that we got plenty of PTO to enjoy and do all this stuff with. And I remember we were all like, can you believe we're here? We used to be in school together, grinding and studying, and it had its own fun. But being there, enjoying each other, and really appreciating our accomplishment of like becoming PAs and being PAs for a while and getting to relish the fruits of our labor. It was such a blissful time, and I remember thinking, I have the best job in the world. No wonder it's often ranked as the #1 job in the U.S. World Report.
Wow, flex.
Flex. And then I think to how I got here. Disgruntled, planning my escape from the job market, and I think, how do I fall in love with my job again?
That is beautiful, Sammie. I agree. Sometimes you are in love, you feel this infatuation, this honeymoon stage, this intimacy that you're building with your workplace. And you look back and you say, how does this go wrong? How can I rekindle this? That's what we're going to chat about today.
Let's get into it.
Before that, Sammie, we have a really exciting announcement. After over 100 episodes, after 2 years of Status Post Adulting,
2 grueling years where we put out podcasts every week.
We didn't miss a single week, not even that time when a radio tower fell onto our house and we found ourselves stuck in an Airbnb with bed bugs. We still showed up.
Truth bomb.
We have loved it. We have enjoyed it. And we are growing and we're so excited about it. But our big announcement is we are going through a major rebrand.
We're rebranding, people.
We're going to launch it at the end of this month. New title, new logo, new song. Yes, the song, which we know you love.
And we're going to be bringing in sponsors because your girls are going to start monetizing.
That's right. And we are so excited that you have all been with us on this journey. We are so excited about the changes that are happening, and we will be launching them at the end of this month. So keep an eye out for a big changes episode from us.
Now back to our topic, how to fall in love with your job again. For this topic, Michelle and I read an article from the Harvard Business Review called How to Fall Back in Love with Your Job by Carolyn O'Hara.
We have read this article, we have our own ideas, and we're going to mesh them together because we think there are some really great suggestions if you're the type of person who you're sitting in your office, you're sitting in your home office, you're in the floor of a hospital. We know that's some of y'all. And you're maybe not having the best day. Maybe somebody is coding on you. I actually don't know what that means.
Whether someone's coding on you or you're coding.
Aha! Wow, that was great. We think this will apply to you. Unless you're always happy in your job, in which case, how fantastic.
See us later.
So where are we starting, Sammie?
First things first, take action.
Oh, yes. You didn't think we would let you guys get away without taking action, did you?
So you find yourself out of love with your job. If you were out of love with your romantic partner, would you just end the relationship? Or would you go to marriage counseling? You would go to marriage counseling. And just like that, you need to create a plan for falling back in love with your job. Because yes, maybe at the end of the day, the answer will be to leave your job. But in the meantime, you've got to find a way to live with this job.
Okay, I'm with you, Sammie.
You've got to create a plan from getting dissatisfied to becoming satisfied. I think about myself. For me, the main difficulty with my job is that I have to work so many hours. I work my regular 40 hours, then I come back from work and I do charting. And in addition to just the amount of time that charting takes up, charting can be a bit emotionally draining too. During the workday, I'm seeing patients every 15 minutes. And, I'll walk into one room and I might be talking to somebody about the divorce they're going through and, we're pulling out the tissues. Again, 15-minute appointment. And then I bust out of that room. I barely have time to chart. And then I go into the next room. And maybe then I'm talking to my patient who desperately needs to see a surgeon but doesn't have a ride. So they're coming in, every week or every 2 weeks for the same problem. And I'm also mentally trying to plan out how we can get them a ride to their appointments and come out of that room, not having time to chart again. So then I come home. I'm supposed to be enjoying my time at home, but instead I have all this leftover paperwork to do. And every time I open up that patient's chart, everything, all those emotions from that patient visit flood back onto me. I remember the tears and the tough situations and trying to figure out how to get them out of their situation. And it can just be a lot. It can just be overwhelming.
It sounds like a lot, Sammie. And I've seen it in action. You don't understand, guys. Sammie literally works every minute, every single day. It's like 99% working, 1% doing literally anything else.
I don't know if that's true, but yes, a lot of time is spent working, which I dislike, and I know it has to change. And so one thing I've been doing is a cutting the cord exercise. It's a spiritual exercise where when I come home, before I start charting, I actually do a little, you could call it a spell, you could call it a little prayer, where I call in my angels, my dark angel, and I imagine a cord that's connecting me to all my patients' problems. And I actually imagine cutting that cord. And while I'm doing this, I have usually a candle out as well. It kind of creates this little prayer-y seance vibe where, in a spiritual way, I'm actually eliminating the connections to all my patients so that I can just chart objectively and get that documentation done without having such emotional baggage. And the crazy thing is, it does actually work a little bit. Like, I do feel significantly less burdened by the emotions when I remember to do that little chant.
I think that's a great example, Sammie, of recognizing a problem. In your case, talking about it with somebody like your therapist or shamanic healer and finding a solution.
Yes. What I like about Carol O'Hara bringing this take action point up in her article is I also think about actually creating like a document or a plan that's like, step A, I'm going to ask for reduced hours at work. Step B, I'm going to, maybe ask for a raise. Just like little steps that you are going to go through to try to make your situation better. Because yes, maybe you're disgruntled by your job, but you 100% won't have a better time at work if you don't do anything to improve your situation.
I love that, Sammie, because one thing you're doing is you're taking a look at the negative things and then trying to take a plan of action. Another option, which I think is really awesome too, that's on this same list, is think about what you like doing. Take some time and think about what you're good at. Even map out your day. When are your energy levels the highest? When are you really excited about something? When do you come out of a meeting and you're high-fiving people and you're just feeling like king of the world? Take a day or two and actually note those moments so you can turn it up and enjoy the good parts of your day more often.
Yes. And something super helpful with this strategy is knowing your Sparketype. We talked about Sparketypes previously on this podcast. We actually have 2 episodes about Sparketypes, so we will definitely link to that in the show notes. But Sparketypes really get you an idea of what kind of activities inspire you. For example, I'm a maven. I love to learn. And I'm an essentialist. I love to organize things. There are definitely aspects of my job where I can learn, like researching my patient's conditions. I learn a ton about them, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. And even the essentialist aspect, like I love organizing all their medications or their meals, and it's crazy how much of a difference that can make, and that's something that I really enjoy in my job.
I really like the Sparketypes too, Sammie. Whether or not you just are doing a self-evaluation, if you want to take that quiz, it's so helpful. I like to bring entertainment and joy to the workplace. I'm also a really big learner. So for me, when I was in sales, the things that always brought me alive was having this conversation with my client, being able to do presentations, asking them questions, working with them on a plan, learning about their problems. I loved that stuff. On the flip side, I hated all the organizational things. Like I hated having to reach out to people all the time and bother everybody, do cold calling, all of those things. And if I had to go back in sales, I would try to get a role that optimized for my strengths, which is talking to people, even working with my peers. Like I actually really enjoy my coworkers and helping them out as well. And doing less of the annoying reach out, cold calling, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Michelle, I totally agree. I think a lot of times if we ask, there's a way to make our own current workplace fit our skills better by removing the things that we really, really don't like and bringing in more of those things that we do like. Because the truth is, there's probably someone out there who really likes the thing that you hate. So if we can get everybody in their appropriate roles, that can a lot of times improve everybody's situation.
It's so true, Sammie. Also, speaking of other people, one thing that is so, so valuable is finding passionate people in your workplace. People who are super excited about the job, people who love being strategic, they just get really amped up. Because when you surround yourself with other people that love the job, it's so infectious. I remember when I would have meetings with my solutions architect, and he would be on the whiteboard showing me how different things come together, and we would come up with a plan for our meeting. He would be asking them certain questions and doing demonstrations of how the cloud product worked. Meanwhile, I would be strategically giving them different ideas and asking them about their problems. And that would always get me so amped up because the people I worked with they loved the product, they were like nerding out on it, and we could just get excited about it together.
I can tell you're getting excited right now.
I really am. I need to go back into cloud sales.
And in contrast, you kind of want to avoid being around too many negative people. I know in the workplace it's easy to complain, and sometimes things are just getting so crazy you want to vent, and you want to vent with somebody. But sometimes we create an atmosphere where we're always complaining, and that can just be really negative and bring down the mood even more.
I agree, Sammie. I remember at the worst points of my work when I was just really unhappy. It seemed so good to be able to connect with somebody who was also upset about the workplace. But I remember sometimes after having Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting all day, I would then hop on the phone with one of my coworkers and we would complain about every little thing, about our hot boss doesn't show up to meetings, or even the food or the snacks. We would just make a long list and we'd go on and on and on. The sun would be setting, the room would get dark, I would be hungry because I haven't eaten. Literally, we would talk for a couple hours. And at the end of that conversation, even though it initially felt good to vent with someone, it was kind of like binging on sugar. Like I just ate a bunch of crap and I felt terrible afterwards. That's the problem with really getting into the negative. Like there's always going to be somebody at your work that you can complain about stuff with. And I think the truth is like you don't want to be that person and you don't want to attract or encourage that energy. Because I never really stay in touch with those people because that was all we talked about. And then you don't really want to be their friend because you just associate negativity with them. And I'm sure they associate that negativity with me as well.
It's true, Michelle. And I think we've all been there. And I think sometimes it can feel good to let it out. But once you let it out, you don't have to let it out every single day. And truthfully, I think a lot of us want to reduce the amount of hours that we're working. Whenever we're complaining about work for hours on end, we're just adding to the amount of time that we're thinking about work when we could be doing other things.
Yeah, you're just extending your workday.
Exactly. You're extending your workday by complaining, and you don't want to do that. And that's an important one to remember. I speak for myself too. It's easy to complain with coworkers, and it's a way of connecting with them. But at the same time, it really doesn't add value.
Speaking to Sammie of finding a positivity in the workplace, one really, really great thing to do is celebrate your accomplishments. I think we sometimes forget, especially when you have a deadline coming up, when you're about to miss your quota, when it just seems like everything is going bad. We forget our good days. We forget our accomplishments. We forget that we're good, competent people. And it's so nice to have something like a brag list where you just save emails into a specific folder of nice things that people have said to you. If my clients email my boss and are like, Michelle helped me so much, she's such a great worker, I will save all of those somewhere. I'll take screenshots of nice messages. Because when you're down in the dumps, it's nice to go back and remember that you are a good, competent person. Because you are. But sometimes we just forget that and we don't have a record of that when we actually need to go back and look at it.
And if you like positive feedback, let your boss know. I remember I was working with this resident and she was so lovely. And she was talking about how she loves positive feedback and how she will do anything if someone gives her positive feedback. She's like, yeah, sure, I'll work a 24-hour call because you think I'm the best one to work it. And it's so true. I completely agree. If people are complimenting me, they almost don't have to pay me. I'm just like, I would love to do that for you.
It's so true, Sammie. And I think for managers, it's kind of tricky because some people like it and some people don't. I remember when our head of sales gave me a shout out, shared my call with everybody, told everybody what a good job I was doing. I was like so happy and so proud, and I would have worked for them for another 10 years in that moment. Versus there are some people who that type of public attention makes them feel uncomfortable. And so I feel like sometimes managers don't know. And so if you're optimizing for one versus the other, like if they're like, well, nobody likes to hear that kind of feedback, and if my manager never says anything good about me, I would be so sad. I think of it as your corporate love language. I've had bosses in the past who would come in and bring us breakfast pizzas or bagels or donuts, and they'd be like, hey, you guys did a great job, and they'd bring us food. A lot of people were happy about that. So those type of things, it's good to communicate like, hey, if I'm doing well, like this is how I like to receive positive feedback, or I love the way your old coworker did it, just jokingly almost say, hey, if you give me a compliment, I will do that. You don't have to threaten me. I think it's good to communicate those things.
And so, Michelle, maybe you've been complimented. You've made a list of your accomplishments. You've gone to the marriage counseling version of job counseling, and you've tried to fall back in love with your job again, but you simply cannot. It's time to know when to move on.
Oh my gosh. Just so you all know, none of this is actual relationship advice. Do not apply it. But please accept our metaphor, because there was something in this article that I loved. O'Hara actually quotes Daniel Galati, author of Passion and Purpose, who says, you can have bad days, you can have bad weeks, but you can't have bad months.
And he didn't say this, but maybe you can have bad months, but you can't have bad years.
The point being, if it seems like you're never happy in your job, you're trying different things, it's not changing, it is good to start looking at your options, because there are other jobs out there. You can interview. It's not always easy, but it might be the time to start planning it if you really are suffering at your job.
And this is when your fire girls, Sammie and Michelle, are back.
Oh ho ho, that's right.
You didn't think we would leave you down a whole track of falling in love with your job with no answer if you don't fall in love with your job? Sometimes it's not that you can't. You know, it's the job. It's not working. You're done.
Break up with your job, okay? Break
up with your job. And I think a lot of people, they'll try to like make some sort of like lateral movement where they're like, oh, let me just go to a different job. And sometimes that works, and I definitely think it's worth a try. But sometimes that whole system is just not working for you. Sometimes it's not about switching jobs. It's just about like, jobs are done. Like, jobs are not working out anymore.
I agree, Sammie. Sometimes I hear people, I see this a lot lately, actually, where they're like, I'm working 100 hours a week, I'm underpaid, I'm unhappy, so I'm going to pick up a side hustle. And I'm not saying the side hustle is not a great opportunity to build a little bit of extra income or start to try different things. But if it's really bad, don't make it worse by adding another job on top of it. Start to really evaluate, like, is this the time that I need to look for a different role? Is this the time that maybe I can take a mini retirement or a sabbatical, pursue my own projects? There's a lot of different options out there. So obviously it depends on what your own financial foundation looks like, but that's what we're always here to work with you on. We're here to help make it so that you can be in a job that you're happy with and you can exit one that you are not. Yeah,
and don't feel bad. I think it's easy to feel like, hey, I used to love this. I used to dream of doing this. I used to think I would literally do anything just to do what I'm doing right now. Why am I not feeling that way anymore? We have many lives. I think it's kind of unreasonable to expect somebody to do the same thing for decades. I think about our recent episode with Doc G, where he talks about his book, Taking Stock. And the truth is, it's really normal for things to change over time. We change over time as people. Our values change. So naturally, what we want to do for a majority of our time is also going to change. And sometimes a simple patch like switching to a similar job, but in a slightly different field, or adding on a side hustle, sometimes that's just not going to work. Sometimes that is not the solution. Sometimes it is a completely different change or taking a break to figure out what you want to do. And there's nothing wrong or abnormal about that.
Exactly, Sammie. So, here's our takeaways for how to fall in love with your job again. First and foremost, take action. If you're unhappy, recognize it and do something. Cut the cords, as Sammie says. Figure out what it is and try to improve it.
Optimize for what you love. Try to do more of the parts of your job that you do like and remove what you don't like.
Seek out passionate people. Let their energy get you excited about the job that you're in. There are some people who they were meant to be there, and when you're with them, you just get amped up too. On the counter side, don't be a negativity vampire and do not get sucked into that vicious cycle where you and a coworker just go on and on and on about how you hate everything at your job and the food sucks and the chairs suck and everything sucks. No, that's a short-term indulgence that will leave you with a bellyache.
And celebrate your accomplishments.
Come on! Brag list, communicate that you like positive feedback, let the people know. And finally, when it's time to move on, it's time to move on.
Move on.
Sometimes we just have to accept that this is not the job for us, whether that means leaving that role, that company, or the corporate world. Move on.
It's like the gambler says. Sometimes you have to know
when to hold them.
When to hold them. When to fold them.
When to fold them.
And know when to run. Because that place is burning down and you need to get out.
So before we wrap up, we have a community time. We've moved our after show into the end of the show, and we're excited to share some stories that are going on in our life. And before we end this show, we are going to go into our community time. We want to chat a little bit with you, let you know what's going on in our life, and give a little bit of shout outs to people in our community.
Gather around, folks. It's community time.
It's community time, community time, it's community time.
And this week in our small town, we saw our cat, Snowball. Not our actual cat, but the cat that often comes to our house.
Not like a little.
Yeah.
It's the same cat, actually, with our story when we thought there was a ghost outside and it was actually two cats crying. That's Snowball.
Yeah, Snowball's one of them. And he was coughing up a fur ball the other day.
He or she.
Right. And so we saw him or her, kind of doing the little heaving motions. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen at first. I'm like, oh, I think he's having a fur ball. And he did cough something up. And after that, it looked like he was like gasping and thirsty. And it seemed like he needed water.
I'm not going to lie. I thought he was fine.
Michelle thought he was fine.
Sammie, meanwhile, was about to cry. And I was like, you don't need to go give him water because look, Snowball is not ours. Yes, he comes around our place. He's always chasing birds and stuff, meowing outside our window. Not ours, though. Okay? But I'm starting to suspect maybe that Snowball has adopted us. And Sammie is starting to lead Snowball on a little bit.
Well, so I took a little tub of water there because there's not a lot of water in the town to begin with. It's even hard for us to get appropriate drinking water. So can you imagine the cat? It's just another level.
Yeah, that's right. We have to go and buy filtered water. And then she goes and gives it to the cat. I'm sorry, am I the crazy one?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was going to come and drink it. And Michelle told me that she saw 2 doves drinking the water. And I was a little bit like, okay, that's fine.
Doves.
Yes, she saw 2 doves drinking the water, which I support, even though I dislike birds.
Oh, I thought you said dogs.
I got that you thought that I said that. So, yeah, I didn't want to create a bird bath because I'm not a fan of birds. And I do not want a whole bunch of birds like flocking to our property just to drink water.
Afraid of birds. But she does feel bad for birds. Sammie has a lot of animal empathy, actually.
Yeah, it's true. But fortunately, Michelle did capture on video. Snowball came back one day and he was drinking the water. And he seemed very gratified with it. So I was just very pleased.
I was actually trying to take a photo of the sunset. And then Snowball walked into view. And I was like, oh, I'm drinking the water. So I was like, all right, may as well take a video. Let Sammie know that she's done a good deed.
Yeah. So there is a little water bucket in front of our lawn. And truthfully, any animal, any person who needs water in our town, who doesn't have access to it, it's there for you. It's about like 4 ounces.
It's small. It's a small piece of Tupperware. It's not a water bucket, just to clarify. Also, I told this to my parents because I, one, sent them the video, and also I was outraged. And next thing, they obviously supported Sammie. They were, apparently everybody in this family loves helping animals that are outside. And my dad shows us this video from when he was in India, and he literally has a bottled water, once again, in a place where you have to go buy water that you can drink. And he's pouring it in front of this crow.
They were like 2 crows.
And they're just like, they're like trying to eat it.
These crows were savage. I mean, I would be freaking out if 2 crows were just like hopping around and flocking and trying to drink water from my water bottle, but these crows were about it.
Turns out the animal lover does not fall from the animal lover tree.
True.
We do have a couple of shout outs today. We have been getting a lot of people reaching out to us about the show, sharing our show, and so we wanted to show some love back to Irina of the Boodly newsletter.
Thank you, Irina.
Loved our episode on financial runway. Actually, that episode was very popular. People really enjoyed it, so thank you guys so much for that. My friend Randy Garman in his newsletter shared our episode about perfectionism.
Good one.
Eric, Alex Michael. A lot of people reached out actually about the Pathless Path interview with Paul Millard and my interview with him on his podcast. So if you are new from Pathless Path, welcome.
And we do have some slots still available for the free book, for the free signed copy of the Pathless Path. So if you want us to mail you a free copy of the Pathless Path, please email us and let us know.
Send us an email and let us know why you deserve it.
You don't have to do anything too detailed.
Maybe a text.
And it's okay if ChatGPT writes it for you.
Actually, we would like it more actually if ChatGPT wrote it for you. In fact, we're actually giving a book to ChatGPT. The 3rd member of Status Post Adulting. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Feel free to email us, statuspostadulting@gmail.com. You know how to reach us.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rulebook and we rethink the status quo.